Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name's Elijah. Orioles flew up north for a 4-game set against the Blue Jays and split the series, although it feels like we should have had a bit more. Jays are last in the AL East. The O's took the first two in extremely convincing fashion, put on a power display, hitting 11 home runs over the 4-game set, had a trio of 2-homer games, two usual suspects, and one kind of surprising source. And the Orioles promoted not one, but two top prospects for the major league debuts. So overall, pretty exciting start to the week. But before we get into all of that, I want to thank the sponsor of our show. Bet Online is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of 150 slots games. Head to the website today, get in on the action, use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. So getting into it, Grayson Rodriguez versus Kevin Gausman in game one. Gausman has struggled this year. Does not look like the guy who got third in Cy Young voting last year. 4.60 ERA in just over 60 innings, including this start. Strikeouts are down, hits are up, allowing it hit more than a hit per inning. And the Orioles did not go easy on our old friend. 3 home runs, Santander, 2-run shot in the second. And then this was the unlikely source for a 2-homer game. Austin Hayes has, over the course of this entire season, had issues getting on plane with the ball. It's not often that somebody has a patented ground ball to the shortstop swing. We all know what that looks like. It hits, the dirt at the home plate circle and chops its way out to the shortstop. That was not an issue. 2 home runs off Gausman, 1 to left center and 1 driven out to right center. Both swings looked really, really good. He was very much on plane with the ball. And then Ramon Urias actually added a 4th off of Ryan Burr later in the game. Solo shot in the 9th to put the O's up 7-1. And that was the final score. I think I just lied to you. It was 7-2. I apologize. Yeah. So Grayson allowed 2 runs, only 1 was earned. That's why I got tripped up. So O's win the game 7-2. Grayson gives up 2 runs, only 1 earned. It was a solo shot to Vlad, was the 1 earned. Overall, really not a bad outing. And then Yennier Cano and Keegan Aikens secured the win. Most importantly, though, this was the major league debut of Connor Norby. Norby has been a pretty high-level prospect for us for a long time. He's somewhat defensively limited. He's mostly a second baseman, although we've been stretching him into the corner outfield. Somewhat debatable if he has the arm to play right, but for all intents and purposes, athletic enough to handle left field. In the way that Austin Hayes struggles to get on plane with the ball, Norby excels at getting on plane with the ball. He has a really, really unique talent to just kind of lift the ball. And that, despite pretty average raw power, enables him to do some damage. He led all Orioles minor leaguers in 2022 with 29 bombs. He's popped 9 already in AAA this year. He's slugging over 500. He's kind of a unique guy because, the physical traits aren't all overwhelming, but he just has a good understanding of the strike zone. He has a steady, repeatable swing that he understands very well, and he's able to get into that pop a little bit. Obviously, he's up right now because of the injury to Jorge Mateo that happened in the on-deck circle. And it works out a little bit for us because Norby fills a slot that Mateo had. Mateo's kind of grown out of this, but we all looked at Mateo as kind of somebody who could be the weak side of the platoon, hitting lefties pretty well. Norby does the same. He's slugging over 650, OPS over 1,000 against Southpaws in AAA this year. This game in particular was not all that special for Norby, over 3 with 2 strikeouts, but he did, come out of the game in order to give way for that Ramon Diaz solo shot. So, we can kind of give him credit for that. He gave way. when it was time and allowed something good to happen. So thank you, Connor, for that. In game two, the Orioles exploded to the tune of 10 runs. We won the game 10-1. Corbin Burnes went 7 strong. Only run he gave up was a solo shot in his last inning to George Springer. Burnes is still kind of fascinating. He continues to not miss bats this year, but he also very steadily continues to miss the barrel. So, he, as a result, is limiting damage incredibly well. Only the 4 hits, 1 walk, and only 5 strikeouts. Just kind of fascinating because he has been such a, power pitcher, strikeout guy in past seasons. That said, obviously he's been incredible for us. We cannot complain in the least. But yeah, the Orioles offense was a highlight in this game. Ryan Mountcastle continued to absolutely torment all of Toronto. It's not just the Blue Jays. The entire city hates him at this point. 3-run shot in the 3rd inning, 2-run shot in the 5th. This 5th inning home run was really impressive. Fastball above the zone. It was 108 off the bat, dead center, 443 feet. Just it was an exclamation mark on top of the fact that Ryan Mountcastle was doing this again to the Toronto Blue Jays. He's doing it in commanding fashion and really, really putting the hurt on. Just as soon as it left the bat, everybody knew. So that's about on par for the course, for Ryan Mountcastle in Toronto. That's what we know he does in Toronto. I don't know what it is about that place. But with Mountie at, his relatively normal levels of Canadian excellency, I guess, there's space for somebody to do something cool and be memorable. And sure enough, Connor Norby came through in the 8th inning off of flamethrower Nate Pearson. Norby took a slider that was hung down the middle a little bit and deposited it in the Blue Jays bullpen in left field. It was not only his first home run, but also the first hit of what will hopefully be a long career for Connor Norby. In game 3, while 22-year-old Paul Skeens was taking on the Dodgers, the Orioles brought out our own little spring chicken, Albert Suarez, a cool 1.5 times the age of Skeens, took the bump against Jose Berrios. The game looked like it might get kind of spicy in the 2nd inning. It's interesting. Both teams scored 2 pretty much both teams scored 2 early in that 2nd inning. But then both arms settled in. Berrios went 6 and Suarez went 5. Stayed quiet at a 2-2 score until the bottom of the 9th. The Orioles brought out Craig Kimbrell, who really has been good. Allows a leadoff single to Justin Turner. Kevin Biggio pinch runs. And, Biggio had made a stolen base attempt on a foul ball from Alejandro Kirk. Goes back. Kimbrell goes back-to-back pickoff moves. The first one is nothing competitive. The second one really might have gotten him, but the throw is just a little bit wide, bounces off of Mountcastle's glove, and Biggio bounces up to second base. Sac fly moves him to 3rd. Single brings him home. Jays win 3-2. Pretty disappointing there. Game 4, the score made it seem a little closer than it felt. The O's dropped this one 6-5. Blue Jays threw out Yusei Kikuchi. We switched up the lineup for the first time in a while. Kikuchi is a really tough lefty, so Westberg was leading off, Gunnar in the 4-hole, Adley in his usual spot in the 2-hole. Kikuchi held us scoreless until the 6th when Adley hit his first of 2 bombs. This one was from the right side, and then he got to Zach Pop in the 8th inning from the left side. The old, home run from both sides in one game is always a pretty cool thing for a switch hitter. We did bring it close in the top of the 9th inning. Ryan O'Hearn pinch hit against Jimmy Garcia. Turned on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball in on the hands. It was a 2-run shot that made the game 6-5 before Kyle Stowers struck out on the very next plate appearance, and the game ended right there. All that said, the Orioles did have some good news in this game. I told you there were 2 top prospects promoted for this series. Pretty much the consensus Orioles top pitching prospect is Cade Povich at this point. Povich, the lefty, made his debut, started this game for the Orioles. Just a little refresher, Povich was acquired in the 2022 deadline trade, sending Jorge Lopez to the Twins. He yeah, I mean, he came over with Yennier Cano. He was probably the top prize in that package. Um, and Cano has obviously turned out to be something special for us. So he's currently second in AAA in strikeouts behind another Orioles prospect, Chase McDermott. Um, I think that overall, as far as first starts go as a lefty, this is a pretty tough assignment for your first game. You are going up against a Blue Jays team that is predominantly righty hitting. Uh, Bo Bichette, Justin Turner, some of these guys are known for mashing lefties. That's what they've done in their career. Um, Started out pretty promising, struck out Davis Schneider on a fastball above the zone for the first hitter, but ultimately would only record one more strikeout, gave up 6 earned on 5 hits, 4 walks. Like I said, just the 2 Ks, and lasted 5 1/3. That line is not too great, but overall the first impressions were really pretty good. I will point out on the negative side that Povich does walk guys. This is a thing he's done. He walked a ton last year. If I remember correctly, just walks per 9 was up over 4.5 last year. It has gotten better, but control is not really his strong suit. He has struck out many more guys in AAA this year, like I just told you. So it helps to counteract that. But the Blue Jays lineup did a really good job of remaining patient against him. They drew their walks, like I said, 4 walks in just over 5 innings. He limited hard contact extremely well, though. This is really the thing that gave me a positive impression. Average exit velocity against him was only 76.5 miles an hour on 19 balls in play. Only 2 were hit hard. One of them was a Vlad Jr. home run, which was a cutter on the outside black. There is that there's an argument to be made that, obviously you're not trying to he wasn't trying to backdoor the cutter, he was trying to get it in on him, so this was not really where he meant to throw it. But this pitch is on the outside black, it's away, it started off the plate and worked its way back in. It's not a terrible, terrible pitch in itself. Vlad Jr. is just, willing to hit any ball anywhere, which oftentimes works against him, just like it did his father. But just like his father, it sometimes works for him. And he's got one of the most powerful swings in the league. So sure enough, Vlad hits the ball 103 miles an hour. I'm not that worried about that. The other ball that was hard hit was a Vlad Jr. single on a high 4-seam fastball. It was just kind of center cut. Vlad struggles a bit, but if you're walking away from your first start and the only 2 balls hit over 95 miles an hour were hit by Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I think you got to be feeling pretty good if you're Povich. Went over to Baseball Savant just to check some of this out. Expected batting average against him in this game was just under the Mendoza line at 199. Average exit velo of 76.5. It completely fills up the red bar on Savant, would be 100th percentile. Obviously, this is a very small sample size. And hard hit percentage of 10.5%, also totally elite, also fills up the red bar. So, Povich really limited hard contact in a very, very simple way, a very profound way, I should say. That even singles getting through were relatively softly hit. He did not get squared up all day, and that might be partially because the Jays were willing to go deeper into these counts. We see the 4 walks. They were clearly going deep into counts. And when you do that, obviously it puts some pressure on the pitcher, but also if the pitcher is executing to an extent, you're not going to get the pitch that you are most looking for. That's why we see Orioles swinging early in the count a lot of times these days. It's kind of that controlled aggression. But so not a lot of hard contact. If I did have one concern today, I think it was really just the lack of chase and the lack of whiffs on his outing today. Hitters really seemed pretty comfortable against him. Couple quick plate discipline numbers. Hitters swung at only 20% of pitches outside the zone. League average is typically around 30. And hitters swung at pitches in the zone a little over 70%, 72% if I remember right. And the average is typically around 65. So they're laying off out of the zone more and more aggressive in the zone. That means there's an element of deception that's missing from your game. You are not inducing, bad decisions from the hitters, and they are very comfortable in their good decisions. So a little bit concerning there. Povich really is not a huge stuff guy. It's pretty average across the board. He has a really deep arsenal. He throws 5 pitches pretty well, and all are, like I said, relatively average. The curveball usually grades out well. Cutter is usually solid. But nothing is a minus pitch. Nothing is really like something that needs a ton of work. Hitters were, clearly off balance to a certain extent because of the lack of good contact. Povich, I think the biggest thing for him is he kind of needs to determine what his out pitch will be. And, because this was a righty heavy lineup, righty heavy lineup. I think, like understanding how he attacks true right-handed hitters that love to mash lefties will be a good thing for him. The one thing that kind of stands out about his arsenal, I guess a little bit of context, against opposite-handed hitters, more horizontal breaking balls typically are not quite as good. This is why you will not often see a right-handed pitcher throwing many sweepers to a left-handed pitcher throwing sweepers to a righty. Cade Povich obviously understands this. The Orioles front office obviously understands this. James McCann, who caught him, obviously understands this. He only used 1 sweeper against right-handed pitchers, but that said, his curveball, which is one of his primary out pitches, is also a bit of a 2-plane curve, as opposed to a more strictly vertical 12-6. It actually has, within about 1 inch of the amount of horizontal movement that his sweeper does. And it's obviously a different pitch. I'm not trying to argue they're the same thing effectively, but, because of that horizontal movement, as a result, for him to land that curveball in the zone, it does require starting it away from the righty. And I think that angle, that kind of depth that you have, seeing the pitch away coming into you is really what enables hitters to see it well. All of that said, the thing that stands out to me is the one place he could kind of upgrade is on his changeup. To let the really good breaking stuff play up, especially if it is 2-plane, you need to keep a hitter honest with something moving the other way. Povich's fastball does have some solid arm side run, but I think it could stand to have this changeup play with that a little bit better. This kind of motif that I'm talking about with opposite-handed breaking balls, this is why Kyle Bradish has developed his sinker to the point he has, why he was trying out the changeup originally back in 2022. This is why Corbin Burns employs both a sinker and a changeup. These are guys who are big supination guys. They love to spin it. They love breaking balls, and their breaking balls are really the highlight of their arsenals. But they need something to work off of that, something to, prevent hitters from just sitting on, as a lefty against those 2 righties, sitting on the ball coming in toward them. And as Povich, as a lefty coming in against righties, need to make sure that they have to respect the outer half as well. So the things that I notice about the changeup, it's kind of interesting. It's somewhat hard relative to its fastball. He's not a hard thrower. Average 4-seam is only about 92 miles an hour. But his changeup is just over 85. It's only a 7 or so mile an hour difference. Has a little bit of lift, some solid arm side run. To give you some comps to Orioles pitching, has lift comparable to Albert Suarez, run comparable to John Means. But Means' hops an extra 10 inches, Suarez's runs an extra 6 inches. And both Means and Suarez have a full 9-10 miles an hour difference between their fastballs and their changeups. To me, Povich's changeup seems just a little bit caught between identities. I don't think he's really going to have the super hoppy floater that John Means is going to have, that like made John Means all of the money that he's made in his career. It's a dominant pitch because of how deceptive it is and how well it plays off of his 4-seam fastball. I don't think Povich will ever really get that kind of hop. So, to me, I'd like to see him kind of lean into the somewhat solid arm side run that he has. I'd love to see him slow it down a mile an hour to maybe actually kill a tiny bit of lift. and just get a little bit more separation from his fastball in terms of speed or in terms of hop, and get that on a different plane, so to speak. But all that said, really seeing so much soft contact in a first outing against a lineup that is, difficult for you personally, in terms of the arsenal that Povich has, and in terms of just, they love hitting off of lefties, clearly. I think seeing, with all that context, seeing the soft contact really does bode well for future starts. Brandon Hyde was really, really positive in how he spoke about Povich after the game. And, this game could have gone a very different way. Some timely hitting from the Blue Jays made his outing seem a bit worse than it could have been. There were 2 walks prior to Vlad's home run. If that had been a solo shot, this game looks very different. Povich left the game with a 4-1 lead, or I'm sorry, with a 4-1 score. We were trailing, obviously. But there were 2 men on. Dylan Tate got 1 out, then allowed a single. Both of those men scored. And so we were 1 out away from holding it in the 6th inning there, to only a 4-1 game. The 6 runs scored in 5 innings obviously looks a lot different than the 4 runs scored. So just saying that there's, I think, a little bit of bad luck in there for Povich. Really, really timely hitting from the Jays. I think this start was really a little bit better than it seemed to be. And I'm excited to see what Povich does in his next one. Backing up a little bit, part of the reason that Povich is here, just on the news front, is because we haven't seen Kyle Bradish in a little while. Brandon Hyde was kind of non-committal throughout the week. It was a little bit frustrating because all of us fans are worried anytime we hear Kyle Bradish is requiring time. So Bradish, Hyde, I should say, was initially saying a day or 2 and then saying kind of we're getting him some rest. I think everybody at this time, I don't know, was reading way too much into it. I know I was. Initially, he said, we're trying to get him a day or 2. And then he said, we're getting him a little bit of rest. And this is on us for reading way too much into what they are saying. But just yesterday, in the same interview where he said that he really loved what Povich had done, Hyde said that, there is nothing physical that is preventing the Orioles, from throwing Kyle Bradish. They just want to give him extra rest. We are in a really, really tight, from a pitching resources standpoint, we're in a tight stretch where we had 2 guys go down. Obviously, we only have 1 off day in the month of June, which, again, MLB, why would you do that to a team? So this was a moment where we were going to be bringing people up anyway to help us out, where we were going to be making some decisions, one way or another. And so this is a time that the Orioles feel like they're in a position to go ahead, maybe pull Bradish out of the rotation for a turn or 2, bring Povich in, let him get some work. And as long as there is nothing physical that is preventing the Orioles from throwing Kyle Bradish, and this truly is about load management, I'm cool with it. Be careful with him, but I am anxiously awaiting his return. If it goes another week or 2, then I'm not nearly as confident that Brandon Hyde is not just giving us lip service. We'll see how that plays out. So starting today, I'm recording this on Friday. It's releasing on Friday. The Orioles start another 4-game set in Tampa. Again, MLB schedulers, 2 4-game sets back-to-back is kind of ridiculous. Why are we doing this month the way that we are? But I digress. 4-game set in Tampa, division rival after division rival. Should be a good set. Orioles are sending out Cole Irvin tonight up against Aaron Savali. Savali obviously having a tough year, but handled us pretty well last time. We'll see how it goes. That is all I've got. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Feel free to connect with us, follow the show, leave comments. We are on Twitter/X at The Warehouse Pod, or you can always shoot us an email, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. That's all I've got for today, and I will see you guys next time. Go O's.